Hello and welcome to our sixth and ultimate The Happy Writer in the Autumn series. And when this lands, it's actually going to be in December, and it'll be really the kickoff of winter. I hope, as always, that this week finds you safe and well. And just as we're coming out of the lockdown, I hope you're enjoying some of the newfound freedoms, and also really looking after yourself and looking after others as well. So we'll just begin, as always, today's session, and this week we're going to be looking at kind of finding the right supports for ourselves as writers. So one of the things that any of us who've been writing for kind of a length of time know that, you know, no man or woman is an island, and even though writing itself is a solitary exercise, we really struggle if we're not in some way plugged into a writing community, if we're not plugged into the kind of support that is going to help us to keep motivated and also to improve our craft. And as you'll see from today, it's not just about finding the right support, it's also very much about being supportive and being a support for other writers too, because that's really what keeps the literary community and the writing community going. And that community includes everybody, whether it's the first time you've picked up a pen or a pencil or a crayon, or whether you're somebody who has won many prizes. We're all part of a lovely worldwide community of people who find pleasure from writing. So just keep kind of always keeping that in mind, because I think often when we even use words like literary community, or there can be a feeling of, oh gosh, I couldn't even say that I'm part of that, or the writing community. But we very much are. If we love language and we love words and we love writing, then we're part of a worldwide community of people who are like-minded. So I was very conscious when we're talking about support, first of all, supporting ourselves as a writer. So supporting yourself as a writer, what can you do on your own? Because particularly at the moment, obviously, and probably for a while until the vaccine comes in, we won't have the same freedom to perhaps to reach out and find supports in physical places. So let's begin, first of all, with what we can do for ourselves. And then we can move on to what other supports may be out there. So just what can you do on your own? So I've said this a few times over the series, and there is no kind of way of getting around this one, which is if we really want to support ourselves as writers, we need to have a regular writing schedule. And as I've said before, that very much depends on who we are and how much time we have and the kind of even personality we have and how our energies are, whether we're morning or evening people. But just knowing that we will, on a regular basis, turn up and do some writing. And that could be once a week, that could be a few times a month, it could be, at the weekends. For some people, it can be actually, if I do a half an hour every day, that's really useful to me. It really depends on our what's going on in our lives and our other commitments. And I know that for some, it's a real struggle to find time. But as we've explored in terms of new habits and routines, if we're doing something regularly and it becomes a routine, it's so much easier, and it's so much better for us in terms of motivation. And also we're steadily and regularly producing work, and that in itself is kind of hugely confidence building and very motivational as well. One of the ways that we can also really help to support ourselves is focusing on the words and giving them that TLC they deserve. And again, that's something that we've spoken about already. But it really supports you and the work so much if you take the time to step back and edit your work. And I know that in the beginning, there can be kind of a fear. I was chatting to somebody there recently, and they were kind of saying, when I do get it out on the page, I'm really afraid to go near it again in case I make a mess of it, or in case I do, it becomes less than it was. But we know that part of being a writer and part of being serious about our writing and part of supporting ourselves as writers is to take some time to almost to step back from the work, and to edit it and to look at it with fresh eyes, and look at it in the eyes of a reader. There'll be a quote in a moment that backs that up. So one of the ways certainly that I find with editing my work, and I've mentioned this before, is when I say it aloud. So if I've written something, I've written a draft of something, I'll read it out loud, and I can often hear things, and my ear will pick up things that my brain mightn't have picked up. Another kind of simple tip is, I find, is that if I'm editing my work and I really need to kind of step back from it and see it, I actually save it. I write on the laptop, I save it in a PDF, put it up bigger on the screen, so that almost it's the words are kind of popping out at me, and I read through it slowly, and it's amazing what you can pick up, even in terms of grammar or spelling, or just simply the sense of it when you see it. So it's almost like any chance of looking at it with fresh eyes. So just that, and you are taking a step back from it as well. And the other thing that I mentioned was even when it's in a Word document, just noticing if you can see any of those little lines underneath it that tell us that either grammatically it's incorrect, or whether there might be a challenge with the spelling. So just all of those it really is supportive. It's really useful to us to know that we are taking the work seriously, and that's really supportive for ourselves as writers. And then make sure your writing practice includes lots and lots of reading. And I've said before, it doesn't matter what that reading is. It is all about becoming more and more familiar with other people's styles, the language that they're using. You're opening your mind, and you're just getting really familiar with what a good sentence looks like, what a particular turn of phrase, how does it kind of hit you and jump out at you. So just it really supporting yourself as a writer. One of the most important ways of doing it is making sure that you're also digesting a lot of language and a lot of writing through really good reading. And at the moment too, finding online resources, for example, like this one, and obviously thanks to the wonderful Holding It Together Apart team. But there are lots of free online resources that can really help you to support yourself through your writing, so that you don't at that point have to engage with anybody else in the actual writing community, but you can get great resources where you will just find maybe little tips or prompts, or just ways of keeping the writing going and feeling not maybe so isolated. So there's a good few ways of kind of supporting yourself as a writer. So there's a great quote here from Lisa C. Read 1,000 books and your words will flow like a river. I really like that one. And here's another lovely one I like from Zadie Smith. The secret to editing your work is simple. You need to become its reader instead of its writer. And that's the piece about stepping back from your work and reading it almost as if somebody else had written it. And that's where I find visually, if I kind of put it up big and I step back from it almost, and for some reason, I'm sure there must be some logical reason, but I actually found once I put it into PDF, there's something about that, the format of it, that makes it just feel almost like I'm reading somebody else's work. I know, a bit strange, but there you go. I am strange. So I just want you to sit for a moment with that question of how can I introduce more self-support into my writing practice? And just think about that. What might you do a little more of over the coming weeks that will really support you in your writing practice? And that's even before we look at, looking outside for support. How might you introduce more in? And as I said, for anybody who's watching this is a great way of supporting yourself during, particularly during this time, but at any point, it's a great way of supporting your writing practice. And certainly from kind of comments that people have given, even just taking the time to kind of sit with the questions that are asked, or just even the 20 minutes kind of your week that is saying something to yourself about how seriously you're taking your craft and your writing. So finding the right support as a writer, where to begin. And I want to be kind of clear here as I'm chatting through it, is that there's no right or wrong support, and often a combination of supports can be great. And it depends on at what stage you're at in your writing, and it depends sometimes even on our own particular personality and what it is that we need. But there are lots of really rich resources out there and supports, and a lot of them are free. And that's really important to say, because it shouldn't always have to be about money. But a lot of them are free, and equally importantly, a lot of them give you the opportunity as a writer to support other writers. And for me, that's just so key. Certainly to my own pleasure and my own development as a writer, was being able to plug into a writing community and be able to kind of give and take, and I've really found that hugely kind of powerful as a writer. So where might you find your writing community? And again, I really appreciate that, particularly at the moment, this may be a challenge. But although a lot of the writing group community now can be found online, and that's really important as well. And I really appreciate too that for many of us, like I'm living in the city, in Dublin City, so I can kind of cycle to lots of different places that are easy to access. So I appreciate if you're perhaps living in the country or living somewhere that's more remote, it isn't as easy, but hopefully that you will find some support that will help you to move on with your writing. So here are just a few examples of where you might find your writing tribe. And certainly I think that the secret is, if you find your writing tribe, you'll find the right supports. But asking ourselves the question, where are our writing tribe likely to be hanging out if we're looking for support? Where are we likely to find our writing community? So in no order here, I just put them in, but I'm going to start from left to right. Writers groups, and they can be absolutely fantastic places to find to find support. There are writers groups, places like the Irish Writers Centre, and places like Poetry Ireland, and I know Dublin City Council through their libraries. Many of those have Culture Connects, I think, is another. I think it's Culture Connects. They're as part of Dublin City Council. Many of those have online. If you look them up, they will have lists of writing groups, and hopefully some maybe that are in your area. And I've mentioned Dublin City Council, but councils all over the country are likely to have similar resources. Another example would be online writing forums. So I know on Facebook there's lots of different writers groups. I know that there are, I think it's called writing.ie is a really good resource too, where lots of really good tips and access to a lot of support on a website like that. And I said these are just ones that I know of, but there are many more out there. The libraries are a really great resource. I mean, apart from the fact that they're going to really help us in terms of reading wide and far and wide, there are a lot of writing groups that are attached to libraries, and often those libraries, they're fantastic at hosting readings and events. So checking in with your local library is a really, really good place that you'll be able to find your writers tribe. Literary festivals, another example, turn up at those, and I'd say more than half the people in the audience, I'd say 3/4 of them are all writers themselves. So sitting, turning to somebody and having a chat, and before you know it, you're talking about writing. Community and art spaces, there's always literary things going on in those spaces as well, and writing. So even turning up, and I'm thinking of the Civic Theatre, the Axis in Ballymun, and Direct over in Blanchardstown, just to mention 3 community theatres. They're often spaces too where there's art is going on in those, and great kind of cultural events, and often you find a lot of writers there too. And a lot of the festivals are run through those spaces as well. Workshops, fantastic places to meet other writers, and again, many of those workshops are free, run through councils, run through libraries. I know places like Poetry Ireland often run free poetry workshops, and sometimes there's a cost to them, and certainly I would say that at times, and if you can, investing in workshops can be really, really good as well for our writing. And then there are always readings and spoken word events on, and readings and launches, and so many the many bookshops wherever you live, there's often readings going on there, and book launches. So checking in there too. So the readings and spoken word events, sometimes they're in pubs, sometimes they're in bookshops. But I mean, we're very, very lucky here in Ireland. It's kind of hopping with places where writers are falling out of the woodwork. So what kind of writing supports might you be looking for? If you are looking for the kind of support kind of beyond beyond the free, something like editing, mentoring, or coaching, and these can also be, some of these can also be free. Sometimes people often look for support around where if I'm beginning to write, where can I submit to, for example, or if you have a kind of a collection or a full novel, where would I go publishing? So, I'm thinking of the kind of writing supports around, for example, the Irish Writers' Centre, phenomenal support, and they have the novel fair there. They have great clinics which give advice around publishing and submitting, and absolutely fantastic free a free service. And I'd also advise anybody who can to become a member, because it is a fantastic resource, a national resource. There's and through the Irish Writers' Centre, and again many other, there's workshop, workshopping your work is phenomenal. It's really, you're not only learning from the facilitator, you're learning from your fellow your fellow workshop participants. And I know from the feedback I've got, both as a participant myself of workshops and also somebody who facilitates workshops, it's amazing the learning and the support that we get through workshops. And often the participants themselves end up keeping in contact, particularly if it's been a program of workshops, and can be a huge support to each other. And then there's the reading support of, actually, if you'd like someone to read your work. And again, that can be very much writer to writer, so we can swap work with each other. So I'm in the very lucky position that I have a few I'm really happy with writer friends who we swap and we read each other's work, and we help each other with editing, we help each other with reading each other's work, and that's really, really been powerful. And when I say the chats, and the last one here is absolute, like sitting down at a book launch, chatting to somebody about writing and the works. It's amazing the support that can give as well. So it doesn't always have to be formal. It can be very informal, where you're just literally chatting with other writers about what you're writing and the pleasure of it. So you can see there's a whole range of writing supports. Many of them are free. Some of them are in particular forms are free. Others you'll be investing in, but they're really, really powerful. And I'm just thinking for myself at the moment. In fact, when I'm finished doing this video, there are three of us who try and meet online once a week, and we critique each other's work, and I find that really, really useful. And then I'm also paying at the moment to do a fantastic 12-week masterclass, poetry masterclass. So there's a kind of an example of both work where that is we're doing kind of informally, and then I'm also formally getting support as well. So just as an example. So just asking yourself the question, what's the right support for me at this stage in my writing? And again, that's something very much for you to answer yourself. So what's the right support for me at this stage? I know what I'm at the moment, what's right for me. So maybe what's right for you at the moment. And it may be actually self-support is where I'm at the moment, but perhaps in the new year, I might begin to look for other support. Or you may be at a later stage and you're thinking, yeah, it is actually time for me to kind of spread my wings a bit and perhaps sign up for a masterclass or a workshop or a mentor. And again, places like the Irish Writers' Centre have a list of mentors up there. And if there's another fantastic online resource called, they also run events called Words Ireland, which is really, really good. And again, you'll get a lot of support there. and they ask them, and they answer fantastic questions. They have guide sheets for writers, which are really, really useful as well, even around rates of pay and everything. Really, really good. So just remembering that once you become part of the writing community, you will have the opportunity not just to be supported, but also to support other writers. It's in the flow of give and take that we feel truly resourced and empowered. And that's certainly been my experience, and the experience of so many within the writing community. Is it's about seeking support and also giving support. And it really is kind of powerful how it helps us all to keep motivated and to keep going when we know that we're not alone as writers. So we're going to finish off, and particularly because it's the end of this series, and we're just coming up, and we can now begin to talk about Christmas. This week's poem is about snow and winter, and just to wish you all the best of the season. And I hope you continue to stay safe and well. And I know 2020 has been a very different year and has been a struggle for many of us. But just to remember that there are resources like Holding It Together Apart, and we've seen so many fantastic examples and demonstrations of people giving and fantastic volunteering, and so there's been a lot of good despite all the challenges as well. So the poem Snow by Gillian Clarke. The dreamed Christmas, flakes shaken out of silences so far and starry we can't sleep for listening for papery rustles out there in the night, and wake to find our ceiling glimmering, the day a psaltery of light. So we're out over the snowfields before it's all seen off with a salt lick of Atlantic air, then home at dusk, snowblind from following chains of fox and crow and hare, to a fire, a roasting bird, a ringing phone, and voices wondering where we are. A day foretold by images of glassy pond, peasant, and snowy roof over the Holy Child iconed in gold. Or women shawled against the goose down air, pleading with soldiers at a shifting frontier in the snows of television. While in the secret dark, a fresh snow falls, filling our tracks with stars. So, happy Christmas, and you can see from the shape of the gifts there, I think they look like they might be books. So I hope that you can treat yourself or treat others to the gift of books this Christmas. And there's always the wonderful library too, and we can borrow and lend from each other as well. So happy Christmas, and thank you so much for listening. And I'm just going to stop that for a moment. Happy writing. Start writing and keep writing. Thank you very much.